Hello and welcome to another episode of the BookBaby Spotlight podcast, your home for interviews with authors, editors, illustrators, and other industry insiders from the world of self-publishing. My name is Sam Saddam, and talking with me later today will be the head coach of the Madison High School football team, Tavarski Wallace. His first book, The Game That Almost Broke Me, a memoir about playing football, was released in 2018 through BookBaby. He grew up in a public housing project in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and eventually became Adrian College's all-time leader in tackles. And without further ado, Taz, thanks for joining us today.
Well, thanks for having me.
So I read a decent part of your book. It sounds like your mom almost derailed your football career before it even started.
Yeah, she was definitely a stickler, and she was always worried about me being injured and not being big enough to play the game of football. So yeah, that was certainly the case with my mom.
And how'd you talk her out of that?
Well, I was very consistent in my approach, and I spent a lot of time to try to get others to convince her to allow me to play. I just saw so many other opportunities outside of just playing football. I thought the game would provide a lot for me in terms of life, from a structure standpoint, from a discipline standpoint, and being able to work amongst other kids that were from similar backgrounds that I was, and I thought that was important for me. And that was my first love, was football. So I've always loved the game of football. Since I can remember growing up, I played tackle football out in the front yard as a young child, 8, 9 years old, with friends. So that was, for me, it was always something that I loved.
Well, I guess you kind of have to growing up in Tuscaloosa, huh?
Well, yeah, if you're either an Alabama fan or you're a fan for the other school that we normally don't talk about.
What sort of lessons did you learn from the game when you were young?
The most important thing I learned was just accountability and respecting others. What was required for me to be successful in life, not just in football. Being on time, yes sir, no sir, and that's how I was raised. And those same skills were applied to football. Your coaches expected you to be respectful. They expect you to be on time. So many life lessons learned through football, having the ability to deal with adversity, to overcome, to not make excuses, and so many things that you can apply to life, your everyday life.
So despite growing up in Tuscaloosa, you ended up not playing for the Tide. Where'd you end up going?
I went to Adrian College. My road to Adrian was not by design. It wasn't, something that I had planned. I grew up in Tuscaloosa, and I kind of got off on the wrong track for a certain period of my life. Always a good student up until the time I got into middle school. And at that point, I started to be kicked out of school, suspended almost on a daily, weekly basis. And at the end, I was in an alternative school. During those times, I wore blue slacks and a white shirt every single day. And when we went to gym class, we didn't change our clothes. We were able to change our shoes, but you wore blue slacks and a white dress shirt to gym class. So, from there, I had a conversation with my mom. My uncle had came to town. I said, hey, I want to move to Michigan. Because at that point, I thought I was either headed for death or prison. And quite honestly, so I get to Adrian College by the way of moving to Adrian, Michigan, and going to high school for a few years. And, my college career took place after that. And that's how I got, to Adrian College.
Seems like you had a pretty prolific career there.
Yeah, my head football coach at the time, Jim Lowell, he recruited me. And the one thing that he always did was he told me the truth. And not always what I wanted to hear, but he told me what I needed to hear. And, when I got to college, my freshman year was rocky. I'll be honest with you. I was selfish. I only cared about myself. And, I thought I should be playing as a freshman. And so reality kind of set in with me is that I need to humble myself. And that was life changing for me. And, I went on to have a great college career, very fortunate. And, prior to playing on Saturdays, I sent my defensive coordinator an email, and I said to him that I wanted to be the greatest leader, the all-time leading tackler, and the best middle linebacker in school history. And now, mind you, I had never played on Saturday when I sent this email. And he's probably thinking, who is this crazy kid sending in this email? And he didn't even play, he didn't even start this year as a freshman, but he has these lofty goals. And very fortunate with the help of a lot of great people to go on and obtain those goals.
And then you ended up with NFL scouts coming your way, though?
Yes. After my senior season, the New York Jets and the Detroit Lions flew into town. Detroit obviously drove. It was 40, 50 minutes away from us, but, the Jets flew in and, had a junior day. I met with them. I took the Wonderlic test, which I don't even think they're still doing anymore. Maybe they are, but I took that test. I met with my coaches. And I ran a few 40-yard dashes, and it was a great opportunity.
Did you have any bizarre questions in the Wonderlic test? I know the NFL's famous for that.
Well, it was very just the thing I remember the most about the Wonderlic test is that it was very, very structured. Like every minute I felt like they were telling me I only had 6 minutes left, 5 minutes left. It was very in your face, and I think it's by design to see how you do under pressure, how you deal with those tough situations. Because here you are, you have to answer these questions, and there's a guy sitting right next to you, continuously telling you how much time you have left. And so I just remember that about the Wonderlic.
Speaking of tough situations, what is it like trying to juggle all of that in college life while, playing on Saturday? You got the NFL looking your way. What's that like? You got agents?
The agent thing really started to pick up, heavily. I will get letters. And the one thing that people don't know about agents is a lot of agents have runners. And these are people that are not necessarily certified NFL agents, but they go out and find the talent and make the connection. And on the back end, they can build relationships because there's really no rules being broken.
Right.
The runners go out and do some of the leg work, and those things really started to pick up for me. So but it was all about my teammates, and it was all about the team for me. I was the most arrogant guy on the field, and the complete opposite off the field. So for me, those things didn't change my approach or how I went about my business. It was all about the team. I wanted to be successful. I wanted to be the best. And for me, it was just a mindset. It was a way of life. And, not for 1 second did I think about, letting my brothers down, becoming someone that I wasn't. It was all about being me and who I was. And I knew the expectations that everyone had for me. But more importantly, I knew the expectations I've always had for myself. And, you can always respect people. And that's one thing that I'm more proud of than any tackle I've ever made, are the relationships that I established at Adrian College.
So why did you end up writing a book?
There are other guys and young kids out there like me. And I'll be quite honest, before I hit the send button to BookBaby, I was very hesitant. And I remember my wife saying, you've came too far now. But I think it was very important for me to share my story, to show the highs and the lows, to step outside of my comfort zone. I'm a very private person. I don't hang out with a big crowd of people. I have a very small circle. So for me, it was tough because you're really opening yourself up to the world. But I thought it was more important that I did it opposed to not doing it, because I thought it was important for others to hear my story, to see the highs and lows. And you can look around and you can watch it on the news. A lot of football players don't know how to cope when the game's over, and they struggle. And I was in that place, but I came out of it. And, there's in recent years, there's been some guys that haven't came out of it. And for me, it was very important to share my story, to say, you know what, if things don't work out, you can still find a way. You can still be successful in life. And football is not, who you are, it's just what you do. Even coming from, I grew up in the inner city. being able to show kids and other people that you can be successful. You don't have to be a product of your environment. So that's why I did it. I thought it was very important that I did so. And I have no regrets about doing it.
That's great. And how long did it take you to write?
3 years.
It was your first book?
It was my first one. And I really took my time. And, part of that time is, I wrote when I wanted to write. I wasn't on anyone's timeline.
Right.
And I went back and forth about doing it. So yeah, those 3 years to get it done.
So I wanted to ask you about your title, The Game That Almost Broke Me. Knowing what we know now in 2020, it sounds like from the title that would be a pretty negative view of football about, concussions and different injuries, but that doesn't sound like it's quite the case. So how did you come up with that title? Absolutely.
And I wanted that title to pull people in because it's not really what it's about. It almost broke me, but on the back end, the game taught me so much about life, working with other people, respecting people, being a leader. And so that title came to me as I was writing. I had so many other titles that I came up with, and looking back, most of them were not very good. But, that one really came to me and spoke to me, while I was writing. And I think it was an opportunity to pull people in and so they could see the whole picture. Because, again, most football players, some people struggle. They can't cope. They don't know what to do, right? So the game almost broke me, but it didn't. I overcame. And I really tried to focus on everything positive that the game provided for me, all the lessons, the relationships. So for me, I was almost broke by the game of football because things did not go as planned. But I decided to focus more on the other part of it, the good of what the game did for me.
So you're 3 years into writing. You've got your title now. How'd you find BookBaby?
A lot of research. And the one thing I liked about BookBaby was that, BookBaby has it all in terms of editing, everything that you need. It's a one-stop shop. So that's why, I reached out to BookBaby, and they always answer my questions. I think you guys do a great job there.
We certainly try. So did you use our editing services?
So when I got to the point to where I was ready for distribution, all those things, I had done the editing prior to that. So I used all the other services through BookBaby. I had my cover design by someone out of Colorado who I found, prior to coming across BookBaby. So everything else outside of those two things was done through BookBaby. All of my distribution was done through BookBaby.
Cool. And what have you done to market your book?
I've spent a lot of time with Facebook. I'm continuing to try to come up with more ways to market. Obviously, all of the social media platforms I've used. I've submitted my book to a lot of different websites so that they can be available and make people aware of my story. And that's something I'm constantly trying to improve. And I'll be honest with you, I want to do more. And I think my book can be used as a platform to connect with more people. And that was the goal, is to connect with more people. I've heard from some alumni from Adrian College who were 10 years prior to me that read the book and was very happy that I shared my story. So I'm constantly trying to figure out more ways to connect with more people on a consistent basis.
Is it required reading for your team now?
I, as I mentioned earlier, very, very private. I haven't pushed it on my kids, or some of them have read it by choice. I didn't even mention it. My mother-in-law didn't even know I was releasing the book. So when I say that I'm a private person, I'm pretty private. And, I think if someone wants to know more about me, to understand my story, I think they'll take it upon themselves to read it if they know me already.
And do you have any other books in the pipeline for the future?
I do. And I've been going back and forth as I did with the first one and really trying to figure out if I want to do it. And the title is America's Self-Destruction. And it's really just based around kids and how some of our kids grow up and how parents are forced to work 2 to 3 jobs to provide and really can't parent. A lot of the issues that we're having, in my opinion, today are coming from because, there's no strong foundation at home. And I think that's for us as a country, I think those things are self-destruction.
Sounds powerful. We'll certainly look forward to that.
Yeah, so I keep going back and forth. I've started, and I just need to commit to doing it, commit to doing it and releasing it.
Well, you've got more free time now with football season over, I would think.
Yeah, but that sometimes that's the case, but not very often. I try to stay busy, and it never really ends.
How'd your team do this year?
Not a great year. Finished 4-5. But we'll stay the course. And my mission as a coach is to build meaningful relationships, love people, and develop people. And I think winning is a byproduct of those things. So I really try to focus on that and making sure those things are happening. That's
great. And we're recording this right before the playoffs start. But who do you like in the Super Bowl?
You're gonna think this. You're gonna find this very shocking. Probably, I don't watch a lot of the NFL. But the guy that has had me watching football the most is Lamar Jackson. Absolutely. So I think the Baltimore Ravens may pull it off this year.
So I just picked 2.
Yeah. So those are my thoughts.
Thanks for joining us today, Taz.
Hey, thank you for having me.
All right, you have a good one.
You too.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, as always, be sure to subscribe, follow, rate, and comment on our podcast, and be sure to share it with friends. Thanks to Taz Wallace for talking to us today, and thanks to our Director of Operations, Jim Foley, our producer, Brian Lipsky. My name is Sam Saddam, and until next time, this has been the BookBaby Spotlight.